what you think might be important isn't necessarily always important to the listener. It is their show. I'm just, as I say, I feel like a rodeo rider. I've got to go where the bull goes. You know, if I try and make the bull go where I want to go, I'm bucked off.
Does it bother you if you make an error? Do you sit on it? Or
sit on it?
Yeah.
Weeks.
Really?
Yeah. Oh,
really?
It cuts me up.
Hahn steals it, rolls it, goes it.
Every game I do broadcast on TV, I watch back. Because if I say fantastic 3 times in one quarter, I don't know until I've watched it back. But the trouble is I'm thinking ahead, and my default sometimes just has me blurted out without actually realising, why did I say that again? You said shake and bake last week. You promised you wouldn't do shake and bake all year.
You can smell it in the air. The feeling is here. We're about to launch into the AFL season, and who better to chat with? The voice of the AFL, the pipe, Dwayne Russell. Welcome to the dos&d show.
It's great to be with you. I've never been interviewed by somebody whose opening line is, when I walked in, you can smell it in the air. So I'll take that as a compliment. You can smell it in the air when I walk in.
Yeah, what is the smell?
The smell is, it's at the end of summer. We're coming towards the end of summer. You can just smell it's now round zero.
Right, it's not my barley
state of
aftershave.
origin.
I just
State of
got back
origin.
with some cheap barley aftershave. It cost me about $1.50, so maybe it's that.
How good is that stuff, by the way?
Mate, thank you so much for joining us. I know we're not far from SEN. So talk to us a little bit about your day-to-day, especially in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
What does it look like for you?
Well, my biggest challenge, firstly, is getting across the West Gate.
Yes.
That's normally the challenge of the day. How long is it going to take? Is it an hour? Is it 2 hours? Is someone broken down? Is there an old Valiant that has got a radiator problem that's going to shut the whole of the city down, which can happen in Melbourne? It only takes one car. So I get that done. And then I prep for about 50 calls a day, 40 to 50 calls for footy people mainly. Footy moves the phones, so talk to people for 3 hours about footy. So I've got the dream job. It's not like I'm in the mines digging for coal. I've got a great job. I like talking to people. I like talking footy. I like watching footy. So yeah, it's a great job to have the Monday to Friday 12 till 3 shift.
Talk to us a bit more about Dwayne's World and what it means to callers, because that's one thing. Being a passionate SEN man myself, I love listening to SEN both in the morning.
We used to do the sports
We did the
updates.
sports up. We did the buddy bet
The buddy
crosses,
bet, right, okay.
which was a lot of fun. So we got to talk to you on the radio, which was nice. But Dwayne's World, it's for the caller, isn't it?
It is for the caller, and if I take any more than 40 to 50 calls, people don't get enough time. So 3 hours or 2 hours virtually for Midday Madness. And if I cut them short, I might have a bank of 6 or 7 callers waiting to get on. But I don't want to cut the caller short because they've waited 25 minutes to have their say. So you want to give them the respect of at least having some time. And if I take too many calls, it means their calls are all short. So, I like to give people a chance to have their say. Some of the craziest, wildest theories and conspiracy theories are the ones that actually generate 20 more calls. Yeah. So, sometimes it's good to just give a person enough rope to go wherever they want to go and then just bounce off that. It's often, I'll come into the show with 4 or 5 things that I think are important that people might want to talk about. But I might get to 2 or 3 points in and the phones haven't really gone crazy. And then all of a sudden, the 4th most important thing that I think is important, which might be something just ridiculous like beer prices at the footy, and the phones just explode because that resonates. So you go with what's resonating with people. And if beer prices at the footy or how much it costs for a bucket of chips, or someone got a bucket of chips that had no mound on top, it was just flat and they got ripped off 8 chips. Well, those kind of things for some reason just gets the phones. And the text machine, I get about 200 texts a day. I can't read them all out. Some of them, even I get shocked when I read them. Some of them I have to put in the knob file and I can't, because you get halfway through a text and you think, oh, this is a good one. I'll read this one. And then you get halfway through the text, you're reading it on air, and then the F word's in there or something. They're just trying to catch you by saying something simple, and then halfway through the text, they try to get you. So it's a fun show to be part of. It's a beast. It's hard to control sometimes. I feel like a rodeo rider, just trying to stay on with some of the stuff that I get with the callers.
I'll just quickly jump in. When you mention the word resonate, one thing that resonates with me personally, so my name's Wade. When I go to a coffee shop and I order a coffee and they say, what's your name? What do you reckon I get called the most? Do I get called Wade or is there another name?
Wayne.
Wayne is
I get Wayne.
So Wayne is it's my pet hate because I get it every single time.
Yeah.
You get Dane.
I do.
You get bloody
Dwight?
Dwight, I heard. You get Dale.
Oh, people do it just to be funny.
Do they?
Now, though.
Okay.
They're throwing a strange name. So,
I thought Dale. Where? Like,
Yeah.
how?
We heard of Ross as well. which
yeah.
is-
Well, you
could
got to get
be.
yourself a coffee shop name. Everyone's got a coffee shop
what's
name
yours?
now. Well, I go with Russell.
Russell.
It's easier. If I say Dwayne, it's like, how do you spell that? Is that DW, DU? It confuses some people that have never heard of a Dwayne before. But everyone's heard of a Russell. So I go with Russell. But I do think that everybody needs a coffee shop name. So maybe you're going to have to go with that.
I did try it for a little bit.
Ian.
Yeah.
But the trouble is, I actually did have an episode when I was younger. I went to the States on a footy trip with Port Adelaide, and I was only 18, and you had to be 21 to drink anywhere. And I borrowed a friend of mine, my brother-in-law's license, it was at the time. He is now. He was 21, but his name was Rick. And I went to a restaurant, and they collected all the licenses. And when they came back with our beers, they said, "Rick," trying to pass out. I didn't realise I was Rick. So, yeah, my gig was up pretty quickly. So you do have to have a coffee shop name. You remember when they yell out, "Rick, your coffee's ready."
How do you go with the callers? I mean, like you said, there's 50 potentially a day.
Yeah.
How quickly can you determine if someone is taking the piss? And then how do you stay professional? Because there are
Yes.
the people too that ring in that are being dead serious, but we're going, when we're listening, we're going, oh, is it real? Is it,
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
balance that?
Well, they'll tell my producer I want to talk about Charlie Kerner, or I want to talk about Sydney's forward line. And then that'll be on the screen for me. Ian, Sydney forward line. So I'll say, "Ian, you want to talk about Sydney's forward line?" And then he'll come on and say, "Oh, Bailey Smith gave that guy the finger." So straight away he's already fooled us.
Okay.
He's coming on to talk about something completely different. And he want to take me down a track that I necessarily wasn't ready to go down. But that's sometimes the most fun part about it. I get taken down tracks. There's a lot of people that wear tinfoil hats, and I love a good conspiracy theory. Everything boils back to the AFL sort of manipulating, according to some people, that make it easier for Geelong.
Yes.
It seems like a default position for some people. So there's all these really funny conspiracy theories that if someone wants to go down that track, let them go.
Yeah.
I mean, it is their show. I'm just, as I say, I feel like a rodeo rider. I've got to go where the bull goes. And, if I try and make the bull go where I want to go, I'm bucked off. So the bottom line is, if the bull wants to go there, go there. There's some things that, we have to be cautious about, but I've got a dump button. And if they go there, well, we just hit the dump button. So, I go where the bull goes on Midday Madness every day.
With the unpredictability of it, comparing it to, say, any other show which might fill with interviews, how do you compare those styles of shows and your enjoyment?
Well, I was lucky enough so I did a traineeship at the ABC, 5 years. I was at K-Rock, so I got a lot of the rough edges knocked off me at K-Rock when I began some media stuff when I was playing for Geelong. And then I got a traineeship. I applied to be a trainee journalist at the ABC, 5 years there. And then I got the invite to come to Channel 9 and 3RW. So I went and did footy at 9, and I did 16 years at 3RW. ABC had an interesting policy, and that is you kind of formulate what you think's important for the day. This is a long time ago. But their policy was that you formulate what you think's important, what people want to hear about, and you tailor-make your show for that, which is fine. But AW all of a sudden said, no, what you think might be important isn't necessarily always important to the listener. So AW's show, and that was 16 years ago on Sports Day with Gerard Healy, that was more about, okay, what do the listeners want to talk about? Let's see what the listeners want to talk about, and then we might have an idea of what they might want to talk about. But the most important thing is what is important to them, as opposed to when I was at the ABC, it was, formulating what you thought was important and delivering the best show under that format. So the 16 years at AW was invaluable. I went there to fill in essentially when Hooksy was away on tours, because Gerard Healy needed someone to come and talk footy with him. And Hooksy always wanted to talk cricket. And then I wasn't there long, and then Hooksy passed away. And they were always going to get someone else to replace Hooksy. I was only the fill-in for when Gerard was away or when Hooksy was away and doing the footy for him. And then in the end, the guys that they wanted to get, like go and get Shane Warne or they couldn't get him. 16 years later, they're still looking for a replacement for Hooksy, and I'm still doing the show. So it was a good learning process for me to understand a radio station that's built on ratings, and you don't rate unless you're talking about what people want to talk about. So that's the beauty of tapping into that local audience, and I think Hutchie's done that extremely well with SEN as well. That's what I try to do on SEN. Other shows have a different format. They do a little bit of what do they think's the most important thing, and they will do that. And most of the time, our presenters are pretty good. Gerard Whateley is exceptional at working out what the right stuff to talk about is. But he gets feedback on the text machine like I do. And if sometimes you're talking about something that's garbage, the text machine lets you know, this is boring, this is garbage, get this guy off, gong him red. I get that a lot. Gong him red.
That's still going. Yeah.
Yes. So that's the beauty of it. It's sort of, it's not like I made up Talkback Radio a couple of years ago and decided that's what we'll do.
Yeah.
Talkback Radio has been around for a long time. And it's just a matter of understanding how it works. And it works better with a text machine that gives you real in-time feedback on whether what you're doing is garbage or not.
Yeah. We're looking forward to diving into the commentary stuff a little bit later on, and your prep is incredible. But to keep your finger on the pulse for all these issues, so you've got to have the real hardcore what's going on in the AFL and AFL issues. But then, like you said, the price of the chips at the footy's another talking point. What's your preparation or what's your research each day to stay on top of everything that's going on? Is it social media, newspapers? What is it?
The bottom line is I've got to watch every game. People expect me to have seen every game of footy on a Monday. When I turn the mic on at 12, I have to have seen everything. So if there's a Fremantle Gold Coast game that happened, halfway through Saturday afternoon, and I'm doing the Essendon Port game at the same time for Fox, but there might have been an umpiring decision halfway through the second quarter that cost the team a goal. I've got to know about it because people expect me to know about it. So the bottom line in my prep is watching every game. I don't think there's any other prep that I could do that would be better than having watched every minute of every game. Now, I don't always get there. I get to 8 games, I get to 7.5 games, depending on how I go. Sometimes I'm watching the next Wednesday or Thursday, a game that happened that Sunday. But I do want to be across everything. That's the main bit of prep. There's a lot of prep that I don't do. I don't want to be flippant about it, but I don't know who's married to who, with Brisbane. If there's I don't know who's, got a job outside of football that might involve going to the community and stuff like that, which there's a lot of really good stuff that I should know about because a lot of players doing some great stuff off the field. So there's a lot of those private bits and pieces that I don't necessarily know. But it's a matter of if it becomes important to somebody, if it becomes important that Marcus Bontempelli visited a hospital last week and addressed a whole heap of sick kids, then that is important to me because it's important to, what Bont's about and it's important to what the people are talking about that day. So you just become versed with what are the major issues of the day outside of what I would normally do for prep.
And then probably let's talk about, if that's the prep, what's the review like? Do you review your own content?
Yeah, always. So every game I do broadcast on TV, I watch back. Because if I say fantastic 3 times in one quarter, I don't know until I've watched it back. And that happens a lot. There's a lot of terms, sayings, words that I overuse. And if you don't watch it back, you can't scrap it from your list and say, don't use that word again. Come on. So and sometimes I'll review at quarter time. Sometimes I'll review at quarter time to see how my pace of the call is. Because sometimes I'm a bit too frenetic. Sometimes I'm a bit too loud. Sometimes I might feel like I'm a bit too laid back. Is this game a bit too quiet? So, I'll do sometimes review at quarter time or half time, just watching back some of KO. So, every game that I do TV-wise, I review. A lot of the stuff that I do on radio, I will, for Dwayne's World, review. But we might pre-record an interview. So I might have the opportunity to get Isaac Heaney, but I have to do it at 11 o'clock that morning and play it at 1 o'clock that day. So there are a few of those. So at least I get to sort of listen back to it whilst it's being played to see how did I go with this interview with Isaac Heaney. Was I any good? Should I have asked him about this question or whatever? So, I review my own stuff all the time. You are your own best critic. So if you don't review yourself, you're not going to get any better, I don't think.
Do you receive what's the situation when you're at the desk, you're at a game, your phone's binging? Are you picking that up?
Guy.
You're a phone off guy
no,
because others might, they like to have a look at the phone, and someone might be giving them your wife doesn't give you any feedback during the game.
No, but my daughter will ring because my daughter and my son are not footy people.
Okay.
They're not sport people at all. They don't follow footy. And my daughter might say, can I borrow the car? She wants to borrow the car next Tuesday. So she'll ring on a Saturday afternoon, not realising I'm at the footy. The phone will go off halfway through the second quarter. It's like, doesn't she know I do the footy Saturdays? So, but it's all part of the beauty of life. So, no, I do tend to turn the phone off. I might flick it on at half time. Sometimes the producers also want to let you know, hey, there's a Hemsworth in the crowd. We're trying to work out which one it is. True. So when we flash the camera,
really
to
important
it,
stuff.
you'll know because that happens. Like
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you realise there's some superstars in the crowd, and I might not know them. They might be movie stars or actresses that I don't know. So we have to find out who they are, and I give them the due respect, obviously. So there might be a text come through saying it's Liam Hemsworth. So let's get our Hemsworths right, and we're going to flash him in the crowd in a couple of seconds' time. So there are some things I need to keep my phone on, but they're in my ear a bit for that kind of stuff too.
Now, this cracking episode with the one and only Dwayne Russell.
Who are our friends that are partnering with us for this?
Fleet Plan Hire Solutions. And I'll tell you what, they call Dwayne the Pipe. And there's plenty of pipes on the job site, especially in these huge projects across Victoria, Australia, the world. And they don't get done without the likes of Fleet Plan Hire Solutions, who are number one in this country, Dos.
In all things earth moving. Clever.
Thank
Clever,
you.
well done.
Head to fbh.com.au to find out more information today.
Back to the episode with Dwayne Russell.
Is there much difference in commentary for you between a Fox game and SEN or TV or radio?
Massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of those differences?
Well, Fox, you've got to shut up.
Okay.
So in TV, you can let silence happen. Sometimes if it's, in the old days when I was doing Giants games or Gold Coast games and there was 4,000 people there in empty stadium, silence sounds horrible. But when you've got a game that's bubbling with 60, 70, 80, 100,000 there, you can shut up and just let the crowd do the talking for you. I'm also working with 3 or 4 guys on Fox who I want to have their say. Like if the ball should have been spoiled by somebody or the ball, there should have been a smother, that's not my realm. That's the special comments guy. So it's my job to call the good stuff, to talk about all the glass half full great things in the game. That's my job. So call the great goal. How good a kick was that? What about that from the boundary? How good was that mark? And then I'll pull up and let the Dermot Breretons of the world or Gerard Healy or Jason Dunstall talk about the fact that, gee, the fullback should have spoiled that, or how bad an attempt at a smother was that. He didn't want to get his hands dirty. So that's for them, and they can't have that time unless I shut up. So there's a lot of discipline, I think, in shutting up with TV commentary and giving space. The other thing about TV commentary as well is Channel 7 often go with a 2-caller, 2 specials, whereas we often at Fox go with a 1 commentator, 2 specials, or 1 and 3 with a boundary. And that's important for me to shut up a lot in those games as well, because it can become a bit monotonous or relentless with my voice. If it's a 1-caller, people can get sick of you, especially if you're doing calling and special comments, embellishing your call with a double-up special comment to almost reinforce what you said as the call was really good. You know?
Yeah.
So, that becomes a sparing people too much of your voice situation. Whereas with radio, no one can see what's going on.
Yep.
So you have to be. The other thing with TV is you have to be accurate. I mean, it was it was Chad Warner that kicked the goal and not Isaac Heaney, and you get that wrong, well, you're going to look a fool. But the situation with radio is, you can say, hey, it went out of bounds just in front of the Sportsbet sign.
Yeah.
And, you can't say Sportsbet live anymore. Let's say Coke in front of the Coca-Cola sign. No one knows that there's a Coca-Cola sign there or not.
True.
Yeah.
So there's all those kind of things that fall into place with radio where you can have a bit more freedom and you have to talk pretty much the whole time because dead air tells people nothing.
Yeah, sure.
When it comes to, say, calling Fox, you might be in the rooms even, or you're watching players, say, arrive. I've heard you speak about your relationship with players, and in particular now with the modernisation of the game, the Americana feel of celebrations, and the real atmosphere. Like you look at a Jack Ginnivan, you've spoken openly about. Jack gives you a little wink and might let you know what he's doing. You've got a bit of an inside kind of knowledge on a celebration. Is that something that happens most weeks, or is it something you've now seen as a great asset to build on and add to your commentary? The
biggest prep time for me is the 2 hours before the game when I've got the binoculars on players and I'm looking at what boots they're warming up in, have they changed their hair colour from last week, all that kind of stuff. Because the easiest way of commentating is if your identification of the player is quick. It's when you take time to identify who's that player in the middle of the pack that you tend to run into delay problems in your commentary, I think. So I want to be able to say, okay, well, Georgiades is wearing bright yellow boots. I know what he looks like. I know he's got the shoulder strapping today, so he's got both his shoulders strapped. And then I can see him on the run-in for take a mark. I know it's Georgiades on the way in because 4 steps before he's even taken the mark, I've identified him and I'm calling him in that run-in. So you get that mark early as opposed to Georgiades taking the mark, falling to the ground. He's about to get up, and then you say, Georgiades, great mark at that point because you've identified him late. So that 2 hours of just getting the binoculars on players before the game, identification-wise, that's the key for me. It's also having watched the video the week before, so I do know, what they. And sometimes if I've got a Port Adelaide Sydney game as a Saturday night game, I actually might during Saturday watch a bit of the last quarter of the 2 games that they played the week before to sort of refresh my mind as to what they're looking like. And so, Chris, that instant recognition is the thing that I'm always looking for first and foremost. And I think as a viewer, you just want me to get the names right. I mean, it's great if, you come in with these nice catchphrases and stuff, but the bottom line is my job's to get the names right.
Does it bother you if you make an error? Do you sit on it? Or
sit on it?
Yeah.
Weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Really?
it cuts me up. There's been days when, I don't want to get too over the top, but I do place a lot of importance on getting it
Yeah.
right. And if I get a name wrong, I can't sleep. I
Really?
check social media to see how many people are hammering me.
You're on socials. Yeah.
Well, sometimes Twitter's a difficult one because Twitter I might look at on a Wednesday because I haven't quite got the balls to look at it Saturday night when I make it blue because there's some pretty nasty people on it. And I might not even look at Twitter for a couple of weeks sometimes. But Instagram, how sometimes the mistake isn't as bad as you thought it was. So there's those kind of things that happen as well. But no, it really does get to me. If I get a name wrong, that irks me. And it does really wreck my night, to be honest, if I go home and I've got someone mixed up with someone else. Because, Fox paid me a lot of money to get it right. Like I got one job. Get the names right, mate.
Yeah, but there's a lot of possessions in a game of footy.
There
and
is.
like it's
But I don't have to call them all either.
Yeah.
So, I might not necessarily have to say, Walsh to Cripps to Wiedering. I can miss out the middleman. Walsh's got the ball on a half-back flank. Cripps is the long option. He's got Wiedering. But you might actually miss out the fact that there's a couple of handball chains in that little ringer-rosy. So I don't have to call every name, especially on TV, because people can see the majority of it. But
it must have been tough in those early GWS and Gold Coast days.
Yeah, but that was part of the prep.
Yeah.
Like you just try and get your head around trying to make sure you look at the pictures of them. I mean, when you think about prep, so I'm old. I've done a couple of Olympic Games.
Yeah.
So I did the Winter Olympics in Vancouver. I did the speed skating. And it's dominated by, Russians and people from Sweden, Denmark, etc. So you're talking about a lot of people who have got stuff written about them for your research, but it's not in English. So, Chinese athletes, you can't do your research. So it's pretty easy for me to look up what Charlie Curnow looks like and do a background check on Charlie Curnow, get a whole heap of details about him. But, there was a lot of skaters back in those, so I had to rely on interpreters' interpretation of what that article said and what this person's done and what their background is. So in terms of doing research, there was that was a hard thing to do. Mm-hmm. The equestrian I did at the London Games as well. So I did the equestrian. That was a lot easier because a lot of the high-end magazines have great write-ups on the superstar equestrian athletes. They're well-known athletes around the world, and a lot of it is in English, so you can do your research. So the equestrian was a lot easier for me to immerse myself, watch it, get involved in the terminology. Just watch it over and over again so you make sure you get your terminology right.
Yeah.
So in terms of prep, footy in comparison is pretty easy. There's a lot of stuff out there to be able to make sure that you're aware of who's who and who's changed their hair colour and who's got a nose ring and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Is all of this the exact same when you say you're calling the NBL? You call the NBL for a period of time then too. Is everything routine for you?
Well, the NBL is a lot easier because it's a short court. No one goes out of your vision. Sometimes there's a pack. It's in the forward pocket or right on the outer side of 7 players in the pack, and someone's got to push in the back free in the bottom of the pack, and you're trying to look through binoculars. Who in the hell's that? You look at the TV, and there's a cutaway to someone who's dripped pie on their T-shirt, because they don't have there's a delay in play. The umpire's trying to pick the ball up and get ready for the ball up. So we've flashed to someone in the crowd, so it doesn't give me the vision of the person's face that's actually getting up with the ball. So there is a lot of those little intricacies that makes AFL harder. It's a bigger field, more people. So the NBL's, it's a dream. It's the same people every week, pretty much, playing for the same teams. It's not like they're pulling someone out of the twos that you haven't seen play at all, which can happen in the AFL. It could be 2 or 3 guys come out of the twos next week that I haven't seen play in the VFL at all because I haven't watched the VFL. Whereas with basketball, it's the same 5, 6, 7 guys on every team, and it's a small perimeter court.
This might sound like a silly question, but when it comes to, say, changing codes, and you're well respected, you're a former AFL player, you've called footy for a solid period of time, you then get asked to go and call the NBL. You're an outsider.
Yes.
You're not related to the sport as a player.
Correct.
How does that go? Like, how does that feel? Is there people from the inside look at you differently at all? You're not an expert. Maybe tell us more about that.
Well, the NBL, they wanted to get it on TV and they wanted to make it a decent viewer sport again because it died for a while. And Fox were a part of the reinvention of it. Larry Kesselman came along and said, we want to reinvent this sport. We want to make it more entertaining. And Fox said, well, we're going to have it on our platform. We want a few of our guys and girls on it too, because we want to make sure that the quality of the call is great. So, they had an input as to who their commentators were. And the NBL kind of wanted that bit of razzle-dazzle, a bit of that over the top, which,
bit of Dwayne Russell.
Not necessarily as far as I go with footy, but they wanted a little bit of the over-the-top embellishment and mayonnaise put on stuff. So that was good early days. I think they enjoyed it. But my job is not to do special comments. So it's not my job to say, well, he should have landed that dunk, should have whatever. So that's the special comments guy. So just knowing when to shut up with all of those sports. The equestrian, don't do any special comments on it. It's not for me to say whether the rider's too far forward on the horse or not. That's the special comments person. Just the results, what's going on, the scoring system, all that kind of stuff. Same with the speed skating. So I think it's a matter of, to use the old Clint Eastwood line, a man's got to know his limitations. And I think with a lot of sport calling, don't try and dive into areas that's not your specific area, because people can get their back up a bit.
You mentioned earlier some of the great people you get to do they do special comments when you're calling. Not necessarily for their footy knowledge or how they call the game, but tell us about some of the characters you get to work with, the friendships you've built. Who do you really look forward to when the what's it called? When the roster comes through and you see who you've got on the weekend? Who really excites you?
To be honest with Fox, the variation is great. So, I might be working with Dunstall, who's a pretty crazy character one week. Derm's been part of my life. I worked with Derm for 5 years at Channel 9. So Derm's been part of my broadcast life for a long, long time. So when I know I've got Derm on a game, I know what I'm going to get. I can ask him a question about something, Derm, and then I can go to the toilet for 10 minutes and come back and he'll still be going. So that's the beauty of working with guys like that. Whereas with a Dunstall, he might throw something sharp back at you. So keep your wits about you.
Does he really do those quizzes before he goes on air?
Yeah, so we've done that, music quizzes, Dunstall and I and a couple of the producers. That's sometimes our prep.
Music?
Yeah, we do that. Who sang this song in 1971, who had a hit, what was the lead singer of this band? Yeah, so a lot of that stuff, Dunstall.
Because you love your music too, don't you?
I do, yes. My son's in the music industry.
That's right.
And I love it. So, I do enjoy that part of it. So all of the guys at Fox, and calling-wise, if I'm going in to call a double-header with a Huddo, it's always fun because I know the energy Huddo brings. And there's no rivalry between Huddo and I. There's no rivalry between Howie and I. Mark Howard's one of the great new broadcasters of world sport, cricket. So I get excited when I'm going to go and call with some of these guys. It's the enthusiasm that they bring. There's so much, what would you say, excitement about the day that you've got coming to you as your work day, because you enjoy it so much. It's not a chore. I love going to the footy. I love going and working for Fox. And sometimes sitting in the green room for the hour beforehand could be the most fun hour of the week. And then you get a game that lives up to the expectation and you walk off. You put the microphone down at the end of that game and you think, wow, that was great to be involved in that. I hope I didn't stuff that up because that was one of the great games.
Give us some examples that stand out in your mind of those games that, when you think about some of the greatest moments you've been a part of, what comes to mind?
Well, probably the Melbourne St Kilda game last year, the Wanganeen Miller climax of that game. Halfway, there's an old saying, never give up on a game. The game's never over. And a lot of that game, it would have been easy for us to maybe give up on it. But I don't think Kelly Underwood or I ever gave up on that game, maybe having a good finish to it. And I was really proud to be working next to Kelly, and Kelly calling the big moment of that one when the goal was kicked to win the game. It was a really fun game to be part of. And it was nice to be a part of that little bit of history, to be honest. And it was St Kilda history, so it was unexpected. It was such a game where you go to, and I always go to games thinking, well, someone might take mark of the year here. You know, Liam Ryan might take the greatest mark that's ever taken. But it might be halfway through the last quarter of a game that's a 10-goal game. So you just got to keep your wits about you, because sometimes some of those most amazing moments do happen in games that are up into that time might seem dull. So that was one of those games that probably comes to mind from last year. But to be honest, there's a lot of those games where, you know, something just happens and you think, wow, I'm glad I was able to be part of the commentary for that.
Are you something that definitely gets spoken about on Twitter and online and stuff, and it's obviously during game when fans are watching and they're going, BT or Dwayne or Howie, it's a 10-goal game and they're getting told to pump it up like it's getting closer.
Yeah.
Is that something that is probably we're creating in our own mind as much as what's really going on from the producer?
Probably, but if you're sitting at home and your team, you know, it might be St Kilda or it might be North Melbourne and you're 4 goals up with 4 minutes to go against Collingwood, you know you're still shaking in your boots sometimes. You know you're still worried. So there's always that. And the game, you're always only ever 2 goals in a row away from being kind of back in it. Like if you can get 2 goals in 30 seconds in our game these days. So all of a sudden, what was a 6-goal game, you know, can be pretty quickly a 4-goal game with 7 minutes to go. So all of a sudden, that's game on. So you don't want to be the fool that writes it off halfway through I mean, you look at some of remember that Essendon North Melbourne game years ago when there was, 60 points at halftime? Yeah, I mean, one of the greatest games ever. So you've always got that ability, and especially when you've got the 6-6-6 rule, which almost allows for run-ons because you can't put 18 behind the ball. So all of those things are now played, I think, a part in making those ridiculous finishes or the big comebacks more possible than ever. Now, maybe I put too much mail on it. Maybe, 6 goals, the difference with a minute left might be a bit of a stretch. But I think the other thing is keeping the viewer involved to the point that there's something else in that game. So there might be 6 goals the difference. There might be 2 minutes left, but someone might be, about to kick his career high 7th or 8th goal in that game. This might be the breakout game for one of the new superstars of the competition. This might be the day that Harley Reid gets his 40 possession game. So there's always something in that game to make the entertaining part at the end. You just got to find that thing sometimes. And there's enough superstars in this game to always have something in the latter stages of a game that might be a blowout to make it worth watching, as long as you bring it to people's attention sometimes, because they might tune in halfway through the third quarter and not realise that someone's kicked 7 goals. This could be the day that Joel Amadi kicks his 9, that kind of stuff, which is unexpected, but it happens.
I was just going to say, is there, and I hope this isn't a straight bad answer. I'd love to know, out of all the people you commentate with, who is the secret supporter? So is there anyone that gets either incredibly upset or angry? You mentioned Derm earlier, and there's that classic story about the line in the sand game where he was in the commentary box and he actually decided to take it upon himself, go into the rooms at halftime and fire the balls up. Boys up. Which of your co-commentators or part of the team get a bit annoyed or overexcited when their team's going well?
I think a few of the fresh out of the game guys that have just retired, so they come in and they've still got a bit of that emotion.
We want to name Dwayne.
Well, Geordie Lewis. He's a Fox man.
I reckon that, to be honest, the demeanour of Dunstall still.
Okay.
Hawthorn can't win it, though. We're not going to win this, that kind of stuff. That's quite funny stuff. He downplays it.
Yes.
To the point that he's sort of almost preparing himself for the loss that might happen as opposed to pumping himself up. But there's the rivalry. So, seeing Tom Hawkins and Jack Rewalt now in the same commentary box with us at Fox, to look at their dynamics sometimes when there's Richmond-Geelong rivalry is now a ripper.
Yeah.
It's great. Who is the better of the forwards between those two? Who had the better careers? I mean, the whole rivalry thing. So sometimes you just know that okay, I can poke the bear of a few of those new guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll probably say Jack's funny. Jack Riewoldt is funny to work with because he's got a nice little level of sarcasm to him. So he'll actually give you a little bit of the deep down truth within his psyche, but he'll do it in a sarcastic way.
Yeah.
So he'll deliver it well. And I think that's the beauty of it as well. Some of these guys have got it's the delivery that makes them superstars, I think.
Yes.
It's not – if you can be succinct and sort of in the way that you deliver that line, let the whole world know. And I talked about Dermot a bit. Dermot can tell you something that's not true, but he actually says it so well that you believe it's true. And I love that about some of the special comments guys can actually make you believe it's true by how good they are with their delivery.
I'm going to miss it. I mean, I was
gonna
saying
miss
to
it
Dos,
too.
like my childhood, Dwayne, I remember those Sundays when you were on Channel 9 with Derm, and it was always, I think it was a 1 o'clock game or the early game. And it
The
typically
normally
was,
Dennis Committee, Dermot and I up at the SCG.
yes, SCG. It's literally either Sydney or
Yes.
Brisbane just comes to mind. The Swans were flying back then. So, yeah, we're gonna miss Derm on the Fox.
We going ball by ball names before commentators and Fox Footy, but a name that I know you worked closely with early days. I'd love to know where you think he would be today if he was still here with us, which is Clinton Grivers.
Yes.
You know, someone you worked with closely early on.
Yeah.
Where do you think he would be today? Because he was a great caller on Fox.
He was. I think so I worked 5 years at the ABC, as I said. Clinton was there doing the same 5 years with the ABC as a trainee journo, and we actually did the Sydney Olympics together, roomed together for 2.5 weeks up in Sydney, Clinton and I. We got on very well. And then we both went to 3RW because they had this rule that you couldn't work for the ABC and do TV, do commercial TV. So we kind of got moved off the ABC. And it was a big loss, I think, for the ABC to lose Clinton at that time. I think Clinton he wouldn't be here anymore. He'd be on the world stage. I think he'd be overseas doing, I don't know, NASCAR or the NBA. That's what I think if Clinton was still around. I'm not sure he'd be doing Collingwood Carlton with me. I think he'd be doing the NBA or something.
Yeah.
Wow. What's the difference between calling in person and in a studio?
So the studio gives you multiple camera angles and clarity of a lot of stuff that you don't necessarily get. So I might go to a game, it might be in Canberra, it might be a 1 o'clock in the afternoon game. You get there and it's in a makeshift commentary box sometimes. There's a big pylon in your vision at centre half forward, so you sort of look around it. No one's cleaned the window for a couple of months, so you got dirt, just rain. You got your binoculars trying to get up, and there's sun glare in your eyes. So there's a lot of those little things that the new ovals don't have. The parameters of calling are a lot easier or better at some of the new ovals. The Gabba's still a really low spot to call at, so you get obscured by players in the middle of the ground, obscuring your vision to the players on the outer side. So the Gabba's broadcast area is fairly low. There's nothing better than being at the ground to call, but there's a lot of stuff when it comes to studio calling now because of the size of screens, the clarity of TVs, the multiple camera angles. Because if I'm looking at a game and I'm calling it live at the venue, I've got that camera angle in front of me that I can go to. So I've got 3 avenues to get an understanding of what's happening or who's who. I've got the TV, I've got my binoculars or my naked eye, and I've got the opportunity to maybe look at one other screen if I'm lucky. But if you're in the studio, you might have 4 or 5 different screens. You've got all the different camera angles. You've got, Fox are running 20 cameras. 7 are probably running the same. So you can actually have any of those 20 cameras. You can have the forward pocket camera there. You can have the back pocket camera there. You can have the foreground vision in front of you as well. So that's the beauty of doing studio calling. I think there's going to be a lot more studio calling because in terms of efficiency for a broadcaster, you don't have to send a crew up. You don't have to pay for accommodation and flights and all that kind of stuff. So it's in terms of cost cutting, and in terms of being able to call. Well, you think of the Tour de France, for example. So when they call the tour, they don't call. They're not in a chopper all the way around the whole thing. They're in a box somewhere near the finish line, and quite often they actually can't see the finish line. So they're calling the finish off the screen anyway. They're in a box that was 200 metres before the finish line. All they really see of live action is the cyclist flash by with 200 metres to go. So they're actually at the tour calling in a box near the finish line. Why wouldn't they just do it in a box at home?
Yeah.
So it does make sense. So I think we're going to see a lot more of it.
Did you notice, though, doing that compared to being there, hearing how your preparation works 2 hours before the game, you say that's your go time.
Yeah.
You're looking at every player in the warm-up. Did you notice a difference in your calling based on, you're not getting the same viewpoint?
No. Sometimes I'm getting more.
Really?
Because I can sit in the producer's booth, which I do, for a game that I'm doing when I'm not doing it on site. I'm doing it in the studio, and I've got 15 angles of the warm up in the rooms, so I can see the players going through their warm up in the rooms. I can see the player arriving on the bus. And the fact that he's got a big black eye from last week, I can see that. Okay, he's got a black eye, all that kind of stuff. So then I can write that down and say, okay, let's talk about that. He's still showing and I can say to our producer, can we get a shot of his black eye at some stage? So all that kind of stuff. So the same prep happens if there's a game that I'm doing in the studio. It's just that I'm sitting in this multi-view room, production studio, looking at them for an hour, going through the warm-up in the rooms. Whereas at the venue, it's a little bit different because I don't have that. I'm not in the truck. The truck downstairs has all those cameras, but I might have to ask a producer, can I see some room shots? Because the players, there might have been, we might have the Foo Fighters might be, on stage or something crazy before the game. So I don't get to see the preparation of the players doing a warm-up on the ground in the final because we might have someone singing the pre-game. So I don't get to see that prep unless I go down to the truck or go down to the rooms themselves and actually look at them preparing before the grand final. So, yeah, sometimes it's actually I get more camera angles or more prep time because I do get into the studio for those games we don't do on site 2 hours before and do the same prep.
That's amazing.
Now, what are some of your favourite, let's call them Dwaynerisms? So we got the shake and bake.
Shake and bake's my favourite.
Zig when he should have zagged.
Well, these are the ones that we can rule out. So these are all the ones that I've tried to get rid of.
Oh, okay.
So let's go through the ones that people have had enough of.
Okay.
I've had enough of. But the trouble is I'm thinking ahead and my default sometimes just has me blurt it out without actually realising, why did I say that again? You said shake and bake last week. You promised you wouldn't do shake and bake all year. So let's get rid of the ones that we don't want to hear ever again.
So you don't want to, so you're even...
Zig and zag, no.
So
all right,
that's
2026.
2026.
Let's make a pact.
I tell you what I did like.
We're going to keep an eye on this for the whole year.
It was last year. It might have been last year. And it was, I saw it crossed. Broden Kelly called you on his podcast, and this was amazing. I don't know if you've seen this. I can't remember the exact game, but someone hit the post. It was at Adelaide Oval, I think, and it was voting day in Australia. And Dwayne's response was, well, he's gone to the polls early. Here we go.
This is
Dwayne
fantastic.
bingo.
Yeah, so let's get rid of all these.
Zoom in for people like myself whose eyesight's shocking.
Yeah,
So
rolls and goals it. That's out. We're going to get rid of that. I said that too much. Off the deck, got to get rid of that as well. Off the carpet.
Got his or their mojo back.
Yes.
Okay.
Shake and bake right there.
So this is good for me.
Yeah.
I like a good, embarrassing bingo card to be used by people.
That's as good as it gets.
Yes.
Is one.
Yeah.
Rolls it, goals
Yeah.
it, like it.
Oh, I like that.
I still think, let's just put it on a 4-year rotation. So
Yeah,
I
okay.
think I'm due for a crazy good this year because I haven't
Yeah.
gone with a crazy good
That's
for
a
about
good one.
5 years.
And yeah, I think what's good with a couple of these is they can clearly cross over to say basketball.
Yeah,
so
from
you've
the
got
base.
here,
True.
this could bring the house down.
Yes.
You know, that's definitely a multi-sport.
And you mentioned the last roll. You mentioned that me keeping my phone on. I do get a text from one particular person if I dare say last roll of the dice. Now.
Really?
He texts me and says, "You did last roll of the dice again."
Have you got any that you've been working on over the summer?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's one that I saw. I was driving down to Lawn, and I saw it on the giant electronic billboards they have when you're driving down the coast, and it said, "You light it, you own it." It was talking about the fires, obviously. You light it, you own it. I reckon that's good for a guy like Jack Ginnivan or Tom Papley.
Yes.
If they're poking the bear, if they're starting to annoy and someone kicks 2 or 3 goals on them, you light it, you own it. So I'm going to maybe
that's a
weave
good
that.
one.
Is that
That's a
okay?
ripper.
That pass? Because I've got to run it by people like you before I actually
No,
go
that's a
with it.
Well, as
ripper.
long as it's not copyried by
well, it's
whoever,
not copy-
by the
Vic Rose
CFA.
might own
yeah.
it, but no other commentator owns it. So can I put my ownership stamp on that as a commentary line that I'll try and weave in this year?
I
Because
like
if-
that you've said that nice and early, so no one else can steal that.
So if someone's poking the bear this year, if you're going to rattle someone's cage, you light that fire, you own it. So I'm going to go with that this year. So I'll see if I can come up with a few
You've
more.
been doing it so long now, but do you ever have in the back of your mind like people you might have listened to before you actually got into the media? I think we were listening to you talk about Captain and the Major back in the
Yes,
day,
yes.
and people that came before and kind of brought the entertainment factor into footy. Do you ever, in the back of your mind, just hear the voices of other, even just current commentators and their styles, and you try and put your own spin on it.
Well, Shake and Bake's not mine.
Yeah.
That's Talladega Nights.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff
Is that
I
where you
go
pulled
with,
that from?
Well, no, it's actually it
That is
used,
amazing. If so,
It was used in the NBA.
shake and bake, baby.
It was used in the NBA long before that, and I heard it being used in the NBA. So that's where it came from. And then I heard it in Talladega Nights, and I thought, okay, well, that's just. So there's a lot of movie references. There's a lot of music references as well, like They Fought Trelaw and Trelaw Won, that kind of stuff. That's
very
just
Dennis
lines from
Cometti-like.
songs. Yeah, that's right. So there's a lot of that stuff that does pop into my mind.
What about the callers? Do they ever give you, like on Dwayne's World, do you ever get a nice little zinger that you think, oh,
Sometimes they do put it in, but I'm trying to actually do a few less. Like I don't want to be, I don't want to try to be funny. Like if it works, it works. Like the Cripps thing, we were just talking about the game in preparation for that game, about him he's playing like Superman at the moment. And someone talked about, let's hope we get a good one from Cripps tonight. And it just sounded like kryptonite to me. That's just the way it was talked about. So that was in my mind in that game. The Carlton Superman, there's no kryptonite for Cripps tonight. That was in my mind if he did do something that happened. But if you put it in there and it doesn't work, if you put it in there and there's no moment for it, then you look like an idiot. It just happened to be that Cripps kicked an amazing goal that night and it was available for me to use. But there's a lot of stuff that this is the way I do my prep. You bank it. You put it in your mind, and if the moment comes, because that's the way that Dennis Cometti used to do some of the stuff as well. He had some great lines that, he'd sit on for 6 or 7 years.
Wow. It's incredible.
When we've talked about preparation, you're spending a lot of time in the car.
I am.
So what are you doing in the car? You're a podcast man. Are you listening back to yourself?
Music.
Music?
Yes, songs.
What genres? What are we talking?
Well, it could be anything. It could be. Bob Dylan's got some great lines in his songs. There was one that I used. I was driving in to a Carlton game and I was listening to Bob Dylan, and I forget who the player was, but he kind of tripped over a couple of Carlton players, and I just thought, it was in my mind, he got tangled up in blues because it's one of Bob Dylan's great songs. So the songwriters these days are phenomenal when it comes to their lyrics. So there's a lot of stuff. Billie Eilish from the Barbie movie. I'd happened to see the Barbie movie the week of the draw, and the draw between Adelaide and Brisbane happened, and the players were just standing there in despair when the siren sounded, as if they didn't know what to do. Were they celebrating because they drew, or were they disappointed because it was a draw? And I actually said in the call, it's not what they were made for, which was a line from, wasn't until I said it that I thought, you idiot. That's from Barbie. That's the Billie Eilish line from the Barbie song. What are you doing rolling that out? But it was in my mind, and it was just...
It's a good movie, Dwayne.
It was a good movie and should have won. It's a lot
movie.
better than Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Should have won the Oscar.
Well, what's you're a music man? What first gig? Who'd you see live first time?
Well, first gig that I ever got allowed... So first album I bought was a cassette, AC/DC TNT. It's the first thing I ever bought, a long, long time ago. But I was a bit of... the first concert I ever saw, I was 13. My parents allowed myself and Craig Bradley to go and see Fleetwood Mac at Memorial Drive. It was a big, to be able to get the bus up and go and see Fleetwood Mac at Memorial Drive at the age of 13. That was huge. No mobile phones back in those days. So that was huge. So in terms of live stuff, Fleetwood Mac.
Doesn't get much bigger for your first concert.
I've seen Bob Dylan. I've seen... I paid a lot of money to go and see Bruno Mars on New Year's Eve in Vegas. But that was great. That was fantastic. So, yeah, I've seen Lady Gaga. I'm a big concert goer. I went and saw Jack White last year. The White Stripes came to town, just a little show at the Forum. So, no, I'm going to a lot of music gigs these days, as I used to when I was a kid. I went and saw those old shows of Devo, and, when they used to come to town and play Memorial Drive, it was almost a must-go.
Yeah.
Well, because I've played at footy clubs that Pump Up Music is banned before games, and I've played in teams where it's a must. What about you in your playing days? Was Pump Up Music a thing?
Yeah, there was a little bit of, it was more cadence. Okay. So, and I'm the same now with cadence in terms of how the speed that I want to call. So there's a few, even rap artists now that I listen to, Hilltop Hoods or whatever, that will actually give me a cadence of calling, because Rapunzel is one song that's got a sort of a cadence in terms of the delivery of the song that makes me... I don't want to I don't want to commentate too quick and I don't want to commentate too slowly either. So there's a bit of that goes into it. And when I was playing, I did have songs in the back of my mind that would be a running cadence.
Really?
So, yeah, so
Wow.
keep moving. George Michael used to be one. Faith and a few of the George Michael.
Great song.
But
So you got that in repeat to keep your running pace?
yeah, because
Wow.
yeah, so I don't know why that was just me, but I would try and keep my head in the game by having something to keep me of a running cadence. Keep moving. So you can always,
Wow.
and if I'm going slower than that song, what are you doing standing around? So yeah, there was a different, you're talking about cassette players and headphones and buses and that's not what it is now with the pump up music in the rooms.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's time we talk about this new exciting book. Well, it's been out.
Thanks for plugging my book.
Well, we need to plug it because it's one. Dwayne's actually given Dare and myself a copy, which is very kind of him.
kind
But
of him.
Killing for Sport, it's out in every bookshop, every good bookshop. You can get it today. But Dwayne, maybe tell us a bit more about the story behind it, because it's not a biography. It's not what you think it is.
No.
It's not
Who
about your
would
life.
want to buy my biography?
I think there's a few people in this room that would.
The Killing for Sport idea is something that's been, like 2 decades. It's 20 years of slow evolution of me wanting to be a fiction writer. So I did apply to be a journalist at the Adelaide Advertiser when I got out of school. So I did year 12 at Enfield High. I was pretty good in English. English got me through. English and sport got me through. I wasn't that good at maths, but I knew that I had great encouragement from my English teachers because they told me I could write and assess fiction as well. So that was one of the things that I knew when I got out of school that, okay, there's something outside of football that I'm good at. Maybe it's being able to write. So I didn't get the journalism scholarship, traineeship at the Adelaide Advertiser. They knocked me back. But I've always been of the belief that I could write something. And these stories that have sort of morphed into one big long story about, it starts with Jackson and Sarah. It's their wedding day. The first chapter is their wedding day. It's a high society wedding, but Jackson doesn't arrive. He doesn't turn up. So it actually goes back in time as to why he doesn't turn up, and it goes forward in time as to she's trying to find him. He's an artist. He's a superstar artist, has been all his life. He gets tangled up with the wrong people in Paris and London. So it's not even set in Australia. You can see by the Eiffel Tower on the front. It's mainly set in London, Paris, and the French Riviera, Cannes, Nice, a lot of places that I've been lucky enough to tour. So yeah, it's an international thriller about art fraud mainly, because I'm sort of big into art and I'm married into a family of artists or graphic design artists. And I've got a lot of art at home. Some stuff that I've been able to accumulate over time. So there's a lot of art in this as well.
Gee, I tell you what, art, music, footy, there's a bit of
And
everything.
ice skating, there's a bit of ice skating. So Sarah's an Olympic ice skater as well.
Right.
So there's a bit of that. That's the only sport in this. So there's a lot of things brought together for this. So hopefully, it's been received fairly well in Australia. I'm probably going to find out what the sale numbers were here very shortly for the last 3 months. And if the sale numbers hit a certain amount, then and the publisher's happy enough, then hopefully it might be able to be printed and sold overseas. So
incredible.
We'll see how we go there.
What's it been like? This is a whole different thing, right? Becoming an author and writing a book, but and getting feedback from now a different kind of art form to what we're used to. What's that like? How do you take? Do you get nervous when people have read it and they're about to give you feedback?
No, I'm happy. I'm happy with the feedback. I want the feedback because I don't want this to be my only novel.
Yes.
I want to be able to write 3, 4, 5 of these. So, to be honest, feedback was one of the reasons that it did get published in the end, because I went to a few publishers about 4 or 5 years ago and said that I've written this novel. So got it onto the desks of publishers, which is hard. And it might sit there for 12 months, 6 months. They've got 100 books to read, publishers that have people wanting to, can you read my book, can you read my book? So getting the book into the door of a publisher is hard enough, then getting it read by a publisher, and then getting the feedback from a publisher after that. So just like every other or most other people that have written a fiction novel, I got knocked back with the first round of publisher knockbacks. But being a footballer, I enjoy feedback because that's what I grew up with. I was told at quarter time why you weren't good enough, told at half time why you weren't getting a kick and what you needed to do to stay on the field. So I wanted publisher feedback, and the publisher feedback that I got in that first round of knockbacks was unbelievably good, especially from some specific publishers who gave me such valuable stuff that it was fairly not easy for me to rewrite some of the stuff, but it was able to help me find my own writing style and help me understand sentence structure and novel structure as well. So, I went back to a couple of publishers and said, look, if I rewrite this in the next year, can you have another read of it? And some of them did. And a firm, thankfully, had a reread of it and said, yes, this is exactly what we're after. So they loved it. So here we are. It's in bookshops around Australia. It's sold pretty well over summer. I've had a lot of great feedback. So, you can find me on Instagram anytime. I'm happy for feedback. Instagram feedback, I'm happy with my commentary feedback as well. If people want to get to me on Instagram, you kind of have to be, you have to kind of put a real name.
So you're opening that window right up.
Yeah, and for the novel, I'm happy with it as well because I think it is good. If someone's John Smith and they're on Instagram, John Smith, and they got a picture of their family, they're a real person giving me real feedback. Yeah. That's great. But if they're on Twitter and they're Joe Blogs and they're not really Joe Blogs and they're on Twitter from jail or somewhere, who knows? Just wanting to go me, then that's a bit different when it comes to feedback. I'm not going to necessarily listen to that.
Yeah. Having the outlet to do something away from work or your career, I think, is really important too. Like, is that probably another big facet to it?
Yeah. So I sit in my room for 6-7 hours sometimes and just get my head in my own world.
Yeah.
But in a way, writing this is no different to commentary. So I'm looking at something unfold before me when I'm doing the commentary and I'm putting it into words. That's exactly what I'm doing in my own little make-believe fictional world. When I'm in a cafe in Paris, in my mind, writing the dialogue, I'm actually in there. And I'm thinking of what are the waiters bringing to the table? What are they drinking? What coffee? What are they having to eat? What's the weather like? Is the sun shining through the window? All those kind of things. I'm actually imagining being there, and I'm putting that into words to try and get people an understanding of what it is like in this moment, and trying to take people into that cafe in Paris, and they can feel the sun beating down on the back of their neck. They can smell the coffee. They're eating the food. That's what I'm trying to bring to people by the writing process, and I love it. So, that's hopefully the first of many.
But we need to say, for those listening, I don't know if we even said Killing for Sport. So Killing for Sport by Dwayne Russell is a book.
I think I did say it.
You did? All right. Well, just in case we didn't, we'll cover off. But we'll put the links in the notes as well so people can get a copy. Before we bring out the dos&d goodie bag.
Oh, we've got to get goodies.
We have a goodie bag.
Get like a present.
Yes,
there's a couple presents.
Is it like a bit like going on World of Sport back in the days? When
Sort
you
of.
We're trying to reach those heights.
Oh, Strasbourg sausage and
I'd love to send you home with the Bataki ham if I could, but
speaking of feedback, we got that feedback last year. We used to cop
there is some golf products.
Okay, well, there you go.
It'll come shortly.
I've given up the golf cult. I used to play 3 times a week.
Why?
But
Why
I
have you given it
escaped the
up?
cult.
You're writing novels, so that's one.
So I was playing 3 times a week. I was loving it. I was good but not great. I was playing off, 11, 12, 13, that kind of thing. So, and I was playing with trainee pros. So the trainee pros used to invite me to because I got to know a few of them down Geelong way. So 13th Beach, Bowen Heads, all the great courses. Geelong had a great course back then. And they'd all invite me on a Wednesday or a Tuesday to come down, and instead of paying green fees, they'd play for my $50. So I'd pay $50 to play with them, and they'd give me pointers, but not until they got my money. So they'd tell me what was wrong with my swing on the 17th because they'd had my money by then.
Yeah,
so I used to be able to play with a lot of those guys and get the opportunity to go and play in the Pro-Am at the Masters and Pro-Am at Huntingdale. And there used to be a circuit back in those days, the Torquay Pro-Am, the Clifton Springs Pro-Am over summer. It was a great, Portsea Pro-Am. You'd play in all of those as well. So it was a lot of fun. I loved it. And then my son was born. This is, 29 years ago. And I put the clubs down because my wife was still working at the time, cut a long story short. She was a teacher and I was a home dad for about 6 months, taking him in for, a lunchtime breastfeed to the school, that kind of stuff. And I put the clubs down for 3 or 4 months and I found like I had more time on my hands. I wasn't stressed about what my swing was going to look like. I wasn't going to the driving range and hitting balls. I wasn't buying a new driver. I wasn't getting a new putter. I had so much more time on my hands and I'd escaped the stress of golf. So I've never gone back.
It was for your mental health, by the
Yeah,
sounds.
it is.
Well, the
Great
thing
sport.
is,
Great sport.
we're about to get you back in it, maybe.
Yeah.
Sorry about because we've just joined the cult. Actually,
Right,
yeah.
Well, once it gets you, so you'll be doing the same.
Oh,
You'll be thinking about, what's this? Is there a better driver than the one I've got?
we're
Surely
going
there's a better
down that
putter.
path
Maybe we
rapidly.
should go and hit some balls.
Yeah. I've not stopped thinking about it. All my friends are sending me video. Anyway, that's a whole other story.
Oh, I've got to play that course.
Yeah.
Let's go to Bamboogle. You know, all that kind of stuff.
And it's
oh,
not
we're
cheap.
planning the trip.
It's not cheap.
No.
No.
Oh
No.
gosh, it's real. We'll bring out those presents shortly, but I do want a couple quick fire questions.
Okay.
So I'd love to know of all time your favourite player that you've commentated or you get excited the most for.
Oh, that's a tough one because there's been some good ones. The superstars that can do something ridiculously good. So we're talking Lance Franklin, those kind of guys that can in one moment of a boring game give you the greatest highlight that's ever been. So a few of those guys maybe. I still think in terms of guys that I've ever seen play, it's Gary Ablett Sr.
Yep.
Greatest player ever. Lucky enough to play with him. And in terms of the freak show that he could put on, still the greatest player of all time because he was unbeatable at his best.
Is that bias as a locker buddy? You know, you were next to each
Yeah,
other.
yeah. Well, it is biased, but I think I saw him do it at training as
Yeah.
well when he turned it on. You know, Gazza didn't have that ability necessarily to explain it. If a kid said, how do you do that? But Gazza could, a lot of players can read the ball, its drop zone, where it's going to get to, and they can position themselves in that spot. But Gazza had this unbelievable supercomputer as a brain that he could, in an instant, assess where everyone is on the field, where the space is it behind me, is it in front of me, where's this ball trajectory going to go, how long does this guy normally kick it, is he a terrible kick, so it's unlikely if I lead that he's going to put it on my chest, and if the space is behind me, I might just not even attempt to mark this ball, I might actually just draw everybody under it and then duck back and run into an open goal. He was a genius when it came to the supercomputer that he had to be able to assess everything on a field in one split second.
Well, that took away my next one. It was going to be your favourite player to play with. So
Yeah.
we'll say go. Let's see. Well, a quick one off the top of the head, just premiership prediction.
Well, a favourite player to play with, that's different.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
Because there's players like, there was like Andrew Buse and Billy Brownless and those kind of guys who you knew you were going out that night.
The fun.
Yeah. So those players, in terms of playing footy back in those days, it was still about that. There is no greater feeling still maybe for a footballer, hope. But in my day, there was no greater feeling than the hour that you had with your mates after a win. Sitting in those rooms after the win for an hour, maybe 2 hours, or even for 10 minutes, the bus ride home. I'm not sure the players that now are the same. I hope people in the burbs, the country footy players, still feel that, but there is no greater feeling than that feeling of being involved with those guys after a victory. So I still think that's the number one thing of playing footy. There's money and you can be a millionaire and you can do all that kind of stuff and you can win Brownlows, but I still think the greatest thing is walking into the rooms after a win.
Well, we had Bailey Dale on last week or a few weeks ago, sorry, and he actually said that moment is still the best moment.
Yep.
So current players, I think, are still doing it.
Yep.
Last one, what's your favourite call moment you've had?
There's the Liam Jarrah mark was a good one because I saw it early. The Cripps goal because it just happened and I had it ready to go and it just sort of fitted the moment. But I got to say I love calling the grand final last year. So the Lachie Neale goal, the one that is fresh in my mind, the Lachie Neale comes on as the sub, kicks that goal. In terms of what happened last year, it wasn't a preconceived line. It was just something that happened spontaneously. It was a great moment in the game. Geelong were, they were in that game up until that moment. And, I'm an ex-Geelong guy, but I got so much joy in watching Lachie Neale kick that goal in that moment and being able to call it. So, yeah, sometimes it's just those little moments that you just think, okay, what a treat it was to be part of it, a small part of it. And I'm glad I didn't overdo it. I'm glad I didn't go too crazy on it. I'm glad I gave it the justice that it deserved without making it about me. So that's sometimes the key for me. When I go back and watch my games back, I never want to have a moment that I feel like, oh, you made that a bit too much about you, mate. So, yeah, Lachie Neale goal maybe.
I think we bring in our first goodie.
Yes.
So,
here we go.
Sammy, Milkman, bring in Milkman.
Oh,
so
For
yes.
the milkman.
Full
For the
cream or
Milkman.
what have
We
you
didn't
got,
even
full
get to
cream?
talk about the milk. But so Milkman are everything to do with male
Thank you.
grooming. Milkman
Oh,
Australia.
right.
So
Yes.
The first thing that's coming to my mind is...
Well, I am the milkman.
Well, you
Yeah,
are the
exactly
milkman, so I
right.
couldn't think of a better alignment. We actually might try and get him an ambassadorship.
Right.
But my first thought goes to, he can keep this under the desk at the studio.
Right.
And there's the natural deodorant. There's a bit of, I think, some aftershave in there. Maybe,
Yes.
maybe a comb in there
So
too.
I can get rid of my $1.50 barley stuff that you smelled when
You've
I
got the
came in.
real
You can-
deal.
And there's
no
even some
nasties.
I saw there was some hair powder in there
Hair
too.
powder
yes.
too.
Yeah, so there's
And shave oil. Okay,
Exactly
well, there you
right.
go.
So you get a bit of everything. Milkman will look
Thank
after
you,
you.
Milkman.
Head to milkmanaustralia.com. Use the
Yep.
code dos&d, 20% off.
Yes, if
yeah.
you want to look and smell like
Okay.
Dwayne, he's
Grooming
that
colour.
smells. What do you think of
Yeah,
that?
he's just had a go of the,
I thought
of the
it should-
hair powder. He's had a
Yeah,
nice
I'm
little...
That's not the fragrance. That's
I'm a veteran
It is
seaweed,
scented.
don't I?
it is a
That's
beautiful smell.
It is scented.
Now you know. Now you know what that smell my hair was this
for
morning.
sport. A fiction novel that takes you internationally around the world.
Who turned the smoke machine on? You know?
Oh, it's fantastic. Check out Milkman, as Dos said. Next one, we've got Tommy's. Yeah, bring out Tommy's for Dwayne, please, Sam. So Tommy's is a vodka spritz. Now, in this time of the
nice.
year, so when you get home
Nice.
tonight, you can have one with the wife.
Okay.
Now, these are beautiful, mate. There's a bunch of different flavours. You've got that. Which flavour have you got in your hand there?
So I've got the limoncello.
The limoncello. Now,
Yeah,
this is a signature one.
I'm partial to a limoncello.
Yeah,
so I'm allowed to-
Oh!
Yes,
And it's cracked open
Spent a bit
too.
of time. There's a lot of Amalfi Coast. The Amalfi Coast and some of the... Yeah, absolutely.
Amalfi Coast, it works really well
Yeah,
with the book,
limoncello on the Amalfi
Clear
Coast.
for Sport. So Dwayne's having a little taste test. How does that go down?
That's pretty good. Let's go. That'll do because I'm driving home. But
Well, I can smell the milkman powder coming through now, which is just hitting the
Well, you've
wavelength.
got 3 more to take home
Oh,
with you.
wow.
Bunch
so
of different,
that's
there's a
nice.
bunch of different flavours there. The boys have designed this. So they run Freddy's Pizza on Chapel Street, which is a
Right.
beautiful pizzeria. You can get limoncello off the tap
Right.
there.
Yes.
Courtesy of Tommy's. Guys, you can check it out. It's in BWS, Dan Murphy's, Tommy's.
Now, Dwayne, I know you're saying you're giving up golf, but I think we're going to get you back and we're going to go for a round thanks to our good friends at Golf Clearance Outlet. But they're hooking you up with some Vice balls.
Right, well,
so
see,
you
these
need
won't
balls
go-
to play golf?
these won't go to waste because I do have... So where I live, there's a couple of acres. So I still have a little grass mat. I've still got my driver and I've got my 3-iron. And I still whack a few off the mat down in the paddock.
Beautiful.
Okay.
So as long as my alpaca is not in a dangerous position, there'll be a few Pro Pluses maybe just heading down there.
Well,
this
beautiful.
afternoon.
So Golf Clearance Outlet, if those who don't know, if you're new to golf, you're learning, but you don't want to spend the biggest price on some new gear, they're the people to go to. They set you up with everything from clothes to clubs to all the accessories you need. And Dwayne's going to take on the chipping challenge, which
Oh,
do you want to
right.
maybe announce what that
Yeah,
is?
so we're about to do a chipping challenge. So if you've been listening to this podcast, we encourage you to head over to YouTube in a moment because we're going to put Dwayne through his paces. He's going to be playing for a much bigger prize than just those golf balls we've got there. And so that's just a little teaser. We'll explain more shortly. But, well, of course, off air too, we're going to set you up with the dos&d tote bag over there and a few other little golf accessories in there, courtesy of some of our friends at Fleet Plant Hire Solutions too. But Dwayne, it's been an absolute pleasure. We've been so excited to have you in here. Just by the way, we got a bit of a run on Hutchie and Picker's show on SEN the other day.
Yes.
We had a guest, we had Nick Butler come in and they listened to it all with a fine-tooth comb. And Pickers basically sent us a bit of a warning and said Dwayne's going to be on high alert. So,
Well,
could be-
I did win self-congratulator of the year last year.
Yes,
so,
and he said he couldn't. It was. I don't think we've heard a more excited man where he said you're coming on the show. He said this could be some beautiful content.
Might be a 2-time winner.
That's why we
Yeah.
told you now and not at the
Start.
at the start of the show. But mate, we've had an absolute ball. Thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate your time, hearing about the amazing things you're doing, and of course, killing for sport. So it's been a pleasure.
No, thanks for having me on. You're doing me a favour because you're giving me publicity for the book, and I appreciate you inviting me. So thanks for the invite, and it was fun. Thanks for the
I've loved it.
limoncello.
Thanks,
Killing
Dwayne.
for Sport. Go and find it today, all your good and best bookstores.
Well, that was a fantastic podcast with the great Dwayne Russell. Now we're at the Golf Clearance Outlet Chipping Challenge, courtesy, as I just said, of Golf Clearance Outlet. Now, before we get into it, Dwayne, how was the podcast?
Podcast was great.
You enjoyed it?
Thank
Yeah.
you, boys. It was nice to have the invite. I'm not sure my golf's going to be quite up to standard here. 29 years without a club in hand. So
Oh,
here we
really?
go.
29 years. So we're going to do a
29
chipping challenge. All Dwayne's got, he's got 5 balls of chipping onto this mat.
Right.
We think about 150 is going to be the score. Now, the way it's going to work, at the end of the 6 months, Dwayne, the leader, the person who scores the highest will
Right.
get to go into Golf Clearance Outlet, the store,
Right.
and take anything they want to the value of $500.
Wow.
So you can go shopping. Now, this will get you right back into the golf cult we talked about.
Yes.
So
Get his hands on me again.
we're looking forward to seeing how you go here.
Terribly.
I'm going to get on the other side of you
so-
as we chip away.
So I'm better off missing because if the cold gets me again, I might be back to playing 3 times a week. All right,
Okay, here we go. Chip number 1, Dwayne. We're on the board. We're on the board, but it's a 0.
We're on the
That's
water.
okay.
That's tradition. That's traditionally me. Is that minus 10?
That's not. No,
Not
you're
quite
you're just in the
-10.
0 section.
Right.
While we get that, Dwayne, can you give us a premiership prediction? Who do you think's winning the flag this year?
Let me go with something crazy that no one else is going with. Swans.
Swans. Okay, beautiful. Chip number 2 coming up.
Just pencil that in. When's this go to air? As long as it's-
Probably next week.
All
Yeah.
right, okay.
All right. Chip number 2.
Oh,
There we go. 75 for Dwayne. That's a good start, Dwayne. Love it.
Okay.
Give us a Brownlow prediction while you start the next one.
Brownlow prediction, I'll go with Nick Dacos.
Nick
Finally,
Dacos.
You're going to realise how
Like
good a
it.
player he is.
Chip number 3. Dwayne's on 75.
Oh,
That counted. That was in the 50 zone. That was in the 50 zone. So we're going to just pop that up there.
right, thank you.
125 is what we're at.
Okay.
Chip number 4.
Here we go. Oh,
Oh,
geez.
we'll start that again.
I'm trying to get it a bit higher.
Who's going to win the Coleman, Dwayne?
Coleman, Charlie.
Charlie. Okay, we know you love
Kenneth
Charlie.
Coleman.
Oh, I reckon that we're going to put that as 25. DOS score 150. Is that?
All right.
That's competitive.
All right.
If you can hit the 100 here,
100 here.
you can hit the 100. You
Oh,
might
yeah.
go shopping, courtesy of Golf Clearance Outlet.
No.
50. That's not bad. That's
Okay.
bad. What do we get? 200, Dwayne. That's a pretty good score. Now,
right.
Golf Clearance Outlet's a place where you can go for all your golf needs. It's the most affordable place to get all your clubs, your apparel, these kind of office type setups that we love there. There's 9 stores across Australia, but we encourage you to shop online. You can get all your goodies there. Unbelievable price, bargain price. How was that, Dwayne? Enjoy it?
Bit of fun.
Bit of fun? 200, we'll let you know in about 6 months. The leaderboard will go up, but we've got a clubhouse leader, Dwayne Russell. Thanks for playing, Dwayne.
A pleasure.